Good evening, everybody. My name's Tori Judds. I probably know many of the almost 200 people who are here this evening, and welcome to our presentation of our strategic vision. I'd like to invite everybody, wherever you are, to join with me in a moment of shared worship to begin this evening's presentation. Thank you, friends. So in order to get us started here, I want to tell you a little bit about the format that we're going to use tonight and a little bit about what we hope to accomplish. So because there are our invite list was very large, and I'm glad to see that our participant list is constantly ticking up here. We've got quite a number of folks joining us. We elected this webinar format. Although we can't see you, there are quite a number of you present, alums, parents, current students, all different Westtown constituencies, and I'm really glad that you're here this evening. In addition to myself, there are several other Westonians present to tell you about our strategic vision this evening. Trustees Danielle Tolton and Kevin Roos are with us, as is Associate Head of School Chris Benbow, Lower School Principal Karen Payton, Middle School Principal Will Addis, Upper School Principal Vita Robinson, and Dean of Enrollment Management Nathan Bone. And together, what we hope to accomplish today is to introduce you to our top 3 priorities that will guide Westtown's work over the coming years and decades. And together, these 3 priorities make up our new strategic vision, which we are calling Lighting the Way. For this evening, our primary focus today is not going to be on the specifics of initiatives or details of our work, although we might provide an example or 2 here and there, because of the nature of this strategic vision. Lighting the Way is really, pardon me, about broad themes, again, those 3 guiding principles that will direct the school's choice of and pursuit of and development of various programs and initiatives. So we are going to be talking on more of a thematic level than a detailed level. But there are going to be many other opportunities for conversation throughout the summer, where we will get into more detail as suits your level of curiosity and engagement. To me, before we kick things off, I want to share with you that the document we're introducing today, this guiding vision, is exciting because it is future-oriented. Lighting the Way identifies certain things that are really essential to Westtown and takes them as a jumping off point for a vision of what we can be and will be in the future, so that we can grow and evolve the school in an authentic and a meaningful way. This school is and always has been a dynamic, living community. There's nothing static about Westtown, which I'm happy about. Like all healthy communities, Westtown grows, Westtown changes. And Lighting the Way recognizes that it is in that evolutionary process that we will realize the authentic Westtown. And I want to say to you that the priorities that we're going to share you this evening will not all be fully realized in a matter of years. We will make progress in weeks and months, but many of these biggest aspirations which you will see will be pursued likely over decades. This is a statement both of who we are and, more importantly, who we are going to be. So to tell you a little bit about how this document came to be, I'd like to welcome Danielle Tolton, class of '03, who was the co-clerk alongside Nathan Bone of the Strategic Vision process and will continue to be the co-clerk of the Strategic Vision Oversight Committee. Danielle's a trustee and as well as being an alum, and Danielle, here she is.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So I'll just start by saying that we recognize this may not be the Can you hear me now? Everything? Okay. Sorry, I think I might have been interrupted there. This may not be the strategic plan you're accustomed to seeing, but that's purposeful and that was intentional. We didn't want a chapters long document. We wanted a short and succinct set of 3 guiding principles. And if you were to think that the brevity of the strategic plan reflects a lack of care and thought, actually, to the contrary, kind of distilling it down to the 3 principles you see there reflected tons of conversations and lots of thought and care. So just to back up a little bit and give you some background. The previous strategic plan of Westtown was sort of retired in 2018. It was The World Needs More Westonians. The board, in conjunction with the school, convened a joint committee to start, kind of refresh the work and start a new kind of strategic planning process. I co-clerked that committee along with Nathan, as Tori said, and the other members of that committee were Tori, head of school, teacher Chris, associate head of school, the 3 division principals, and 2 other trustees, Kevin, who's with you now, and Kristen Waterfeld, who couldn't be here, unfortunately, tonight. And we met multiple weekends, hours at a time. I would say that the brainstorming process was about a year long. We generated, I think, upwards of 800 ideas. And we got down to these 3 guiding principles from there. So it really reflects and represents a tremendous kind of group consensus about what are the values and guiding principles of Westtown going forward. So the final approved strategic vision, which is what we're calling it, not a plan, a vision, was approved by the Board of Trustees in January 2020 in the exact form as you see it here today. And then it was adopted by the faculty and staff in February 2020, again, exactly in this form. And we were excited, of course, to roll it out soon thereafter. But then something happened around March 2020 that kind of made things a little delayed. That was the pandemic. So we're here now with putting it before you, really excited to kick it off. And going forward, Tori and her team, you know, the educators and the experts in the community will take the document, which they consider to be a living document, and give it kind of its meat. They will implement the programs and initiatives specific to realizing these visions. And of course, the board will support her wholly in that. And like I said, it's considered a living document that will evolve organically and naturally and appropriately as the school evolves. So I think those are my kind of opening thoughts.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Danielle's right that this was a really, it was an immersive process. It was a very inclusive process, and it was very rigorous. And from those 800 ideas, a number of themes really, a lot of those ideas sort of cohered around certain themes. And the 3 that we are going to present to you tonight really emerged as our strongest priorities. So we're going to introduce them to you one at a time. And I want to note for you that, again, some of these aspirations that we state will be realized over a course of a number of years. And through them all, I think you will see reflected some essential qualities of Westtown, including our commitment to Quaker education and our values and our mission statement that we should be preparing students to go out and become stewards and leaders, not just of this world, but indeed of a better world for their sake and for the sake of all of us. So to talk about our first priority, and by the way, these are not, I shouldn't say first priority in the sense that there's a hierarchy here, but we're proceeding in order from the individual outwards. But to talk about the priority we call Knowledge Illuminated is Kevin Roos, who's a trustee and an alumnus from the class of 2005. Kevin.
Thank you, Tori. Hi, everyone. It's very good to be with you virtually, although I confess it's such a bummer that we can't do this in person. I really, really wish we were all in the theater and, living our lives on campus on a beautiful day. But instead, we're here and we're going to make the best of it. So I thought we could start by just reading aloud this first principle, which is called Knowledge Illuminated. To ensure that today's Westtown students will flourish in a world marked by technological and social change, we will direct our rigorous academics, robust co-curricular opportunities, and life-changing residential program toward the skills they will need to navigate the future, while grounding them in Quaker values and spiritual discernment. So that's sort of the overarching statement of intent behind this plank of the strategic vision. And now here are some specifics. We will help students hone the essential human skills of critical thinking, communication, and empathy, and empower them to draw out those skills in other people. We will teach students to be informed, effective participants in civil discourse. We will show students how to use technology mindfully so that they develop positive self-images, healthy relationships, and strong community ties. We will challenge students to develop the tools and the ethical foundation needed to build innovative solutions to the world's most pressing problems. And now I want to just tell you a little bit more about the thinking that the committee brought to this particular point. We right now are in a moment of extreme change and transformation. All of it is being accelerated by the pandemic. We are taking classes and having birthday parties and organizing protests online. We're physically distant from each other, and a lot of us are struggling, myself included, with the lack of real life social connection. And we're also learning that while technology and the internet and the tools that we use every day make our lives better and more possible in so many ways, especially now, that there are lots of downsides. A lot of what Westtown teaches and has always taught is a kind of timeless and enduring set of values. And the committee wanted to keep those things alive and emphasize them. But the committee also felt that Westtown has a unique opportunity right now at this moment to ground our program in this moment of transformation. The genesis of this particular plank, I think, was a shoemaker lecture that I gave at Westtown a few years ago. And I drew on my work as a technology columnist, and I told students that my research had found that in the future, in this technological future where we have all these changing instruments and institutions, all kinds of work is being automated and our lives are all being sort of filtered and passed through all kinds of new algorithms and machines, that it was actually the human skills that we develop at Westtown, the things like compassion and empathy and bravery and speaking truth to power, that would end up helping students the most. And I think with the benefit now of hindsight, I think that idea was right, but I think I was very wrong about the timeline. I was thinking of these things as trends that would evolve over 5 or 10 or 15 years. But then the pandemic happened and this protest movement over racial justice erupted across the country. And it became very clear to me, at least, that the world needs this idea right now. that these human qualities are needed more urgently than they ever have been, and that a Westtown education that just prepares students for the world as it exists today is not enough. A Westtown education in its best form will prepare students for the world that they will graduate into, and it will help them bring their values and Westtown's values into the future. So that's the thinking behind this first slide. Tori, do you want to talk about the next one?
Kevin, thank you so much. So our next theme, we're going to put up on the screen for you. And as Kevin did, I'll read this one aloud. As mentioned, we're proceeding really from the individual outwards. And this theme is called Community Illuminated. So I'll read it for you. So, to empower our students to lead the world toward a just and compassionate future, Westtown will bring together a multiplicity of voices and deepen our ability to honor that of God in all by engaging our whole community in the task of building a need-blind, anti-racist, genuinely inclusive school. And as before, we have some more specifics to flesh this out. We will maximize access to Westtown by expanding our ability to enroll students without regard to their financial capacity through robust philanthropy and auxiliary revenue. We will dramatically increase diversity in each division in terms of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and other facets of personal identity. We will engage all Westonians in the work of creating a supportive environment for students, especially those from marginalized identity groups. We will cultivate positive racial identity, allyship, and cultural competency, raise awareness of unconscious bias, mitigate the detrimental effects of privilege, and work towards dismantling structural racism. And as Kevin did, I want to tell you a little bit about the thinking behind this theme. The idea of community is a touchstone at Westtown. That was clear to me from the first days of my acquaintance with the school. And I think that this priority, this part of our strategic vision, is really accurately described as an illumination of what community should mean at our school. For most of our history, Westtown was entirely homogeneous. The school was composed only of white students for many years, all of whom were Quaker for most of our school's history, living and studying in a heteronormative gender binary environment. And to this day, Westtown remains a majority white institution that is deeply marked by structural racism. This theme, Community Illuminated, asks all of us to do all the hard work necessary to illuminate a more diverse, inclusive community, the kind of community that we should be, to tackle our own structural racism as well as our lingering heteronormativity and our gender binary culture, to ensure that students of all faiths and traditions feel welcome to worship and live and learn here, and to help prepare students to dismantle all of the above in the broader society of which we are a part. The aspirations that you see here identified under this theme carefully were intended to break down the different elements of this work, which are very distinct, although they build towards that illuminated community together. We set ourselves a bold goal in terms of access to Westtown by growing our resources until admission to Westtown can be granted without regard to financial need. Now, separate and apart from that goal, we are also challenging ourselves to grow diversity dramatically in terms of community members' intersecting personal characteristics. And at the same time, we're setting ourselves a goal of working in partnership with everybody in the community to support students in a fully inclusive and welcoming environment, with a particular focus on supporting those from historically marginalized identity groups. And before leaving this theme and going on to the next, I'd like to particularly highlight today our focus on anti-racism. Now, this vision statement was written before anti-racism became, more or less, at least I hope, a household term, thanks to the protests of this spring and this summer. Nevertheless, it still feels important to note a few things about this goal. First of all, our goal of anti-racism is premised on the understanding that racism is structural and pervasive in nature. Racism is deeply rooted in this country's history and our school's history. It has been propelled along and continues to be propelled along by a variety of really powerful forces, including self-interest and prejudice, but also including unconscious biases that are as deeply ingrained as they are unrecognized. Second, all of us are called to the world of anti-racism, people of color and people who, like myself, identify as white, people who benefit by racial privilege in the world. And I really want to underscore this point. There is a togetherness to this theme. There's a partnership to this theme. And parents on the call today, no matter parents of current Westtown students, parents who are alums and your children are at school elsewhere, no matter your children's racial identity, you know that you don't want them to grow up into a world in which opportunity and advantages continue to be distributed on an unequal basis, whether or not they benefit by that structure. I believe very firmly that the knowledge, the skill, the commitment, the actions entailed by anti-racism will create for all of your children a better world and will allow each of them to thrive in that world. And the last point I want to make, we could talk all evening on this piece of this theme alone. The last point I want to make here is that anti-racism is work. Because racism is so deeply ingrained in our society and our school, anti-racism cannot be passive, it must be active. It requires concerted and conscious effort. And I want to illustrate this point, I want to borrow an analogy from Beverly Daniel Tatum, noted scholar of racial justice. And this is from her book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, which was reissued in 2017. So I'm going to read to you from it. She says, I sometimes visualize the ongoing cycle of racism as a moving walkway at the airport. Active racist behavior is equivalent to walking fast on the conveyor belt. The person engaged in active racist behavior has identified with the ideology of white supremacy and is moving with it. Passive racist behavior is equivalent to standing still on the walkway. No overt effort is being made, but the conveyor belt moves the bystanders along to the same destination as those who are actively walking. Some of the bystanders may feel the motion of the conveyor belt, see the active racists ahead of them, and choose to turn around, unwilling to go in the same direction as the white supremacists. But unless they are walking actively in the opposite direction at a speed faster than the conveyor belt, unless they are actively anti-racist, they will find themselves carried along with the others. I appreciate very much that analogy, and I encourage you to think about it when you think of what is anti-racism at Westtown going to look like. Now here, before we move on to the third piece of the strategic vision, we're going to take a little bit of a side road here to talk about a piece of this work. Now, when the Board of Trustees formally adopted this goal of making Westtown into a genuinely inclusive anti-racist school back in January, a few months ago, at that point, our intention, I might have summarized it by continuing to amplify and grow the work that the school has been doing for some time in diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and access. Today, meeting at this juncture in July 2020, I want to share with you, as I have said before, my profound gratitude and admiration of the survivors of racism at Westtown. My gratitude for making their voices heard on social media. We are reading, we are listening to your stories, all of you. And I thank you for sharing your stories of racism at school. In response to your stories, as I said in my letter to all of you on June 25th on behalf of the school, we recognize that we need to do more than just grow what we've been doing. We need to question all of our assumptions, because the work that we have been doing has not succeeded, has not met everybody where they are. It has in fact failed students and alums. And that is why, as described by letter, the Board of Trustees will lead now a comprehensive institutional equity audit. And this process will be overseen by a committee of trustees, and Danielle will be co-clerk alongside fellow trustee, alum, and Parative alums, Lou Castillo. So to describe a little bit more about the institutional equity audit, Danielle will come back and say a little bit more about that.
Yes, thank you. Very well said, Tori. I share a lot of your sentiments. So yeah, I just want to say, I want to speak to the piece about the board's equity audit, since I will be co-clerking that initiative. And I just want to say that because I also co-clerk the strategic plan, I want to talk about the way in which I really think these two are in synergy with each other. I think the fact that Community Illuminated came out of the immense brainstorming came out as one of 3 principles of the strategic vision, based off of years of brainstorming. Just really speaks to the strength of the group's work, because we were able to seize on to this really powerful idea that now is so profoundly relevant. It's always been relevant, but it just goes to show that what emerged from our work a year ago is so pressing and so needed. And I personally think of the equity audit that the board will be running as aligned with the goal of Community Illuminated, as continuing the work of Community Illuminated. And if nothing else, the fact that right now there is a kind of global protest around Black Lives Matter, and there is a current Black at Westtown campaign going on, I think has helped us do the work, because it has helped us realize that we can't just plow forward. You see some of the details under Community Illuminated talk about we will do this, we will do that, all future-oriented ideas of what we need to do next. But to get to that work, we have to almost look at the current practices and historically at what our traditions have been and what have we been doing for generations of students prior, and rethink a lot of this and reanalyze a lot of this to make sure that as we go forward, we're not perpetuating systemic racism here at Westtown School. So the board is committed. I know I personally committed. My co-clerk, Lou Castillo, is certainly committed, and the other members of that team, I should name them now: Kevin, who's here with us today, Megan Nwoso, Daryl Shore, and Keith Reed. I believe that's everybody. We'll be hiring an independent consultant to help us look at hiring practices in the school, curriculum content, disciplinary practices, compensation, we're going to really do a thorough job here to ensure that, like I said, we're not just plowing forward, but we're actually going to do some benchmarking now and get some information now that helps guide the work going forward, so that we know it will be exhaustive and I think meaningful work. So I don't know if I think I'll just add that we're looking forward to sharing the conclusions of that audit, the board's work, later in the year. But that work of the board will be independent from the work that the school is also doing to uplift Community Illuminated and those initiatives. I just wanted to also make that clear that we're making sure we're doing an independent review as the board as well. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Tori.
Danielle, thank you so much. Friends, I know that I see a few hands that are being raised, and I want to let you know that as soon as we make our way through the 3 themes, we will open things up to questions. But I also want to let you know that there are a number of other opportunities coming for you to bring up more specific questions or to share particular experiences as an alum, as a parent, as a student. You'll, if you haven't already, check your email and you'll see invitations to these things. If you are a parent of a current Westtown student who identifies as Black, or a current upper school student who identifies as Black, you are invited to join an open forum for your questions and your experiences and your ideas next Monday. That's July 13th. If you identify as a Black alum of Westtown, you are invited to join an open forum next Wednesday, July 15th. And I want to note here that this session on the 15th will be primarily affinity space. So we're asking that you only sign on if you're an alum who identifies as Black. At the beginning and the end, I will be there with Martha Bryans as the clerk of the board to answer questions, but because we both identify as white, we will exit the Zoom for a period of time to allow more sharing with trustees and admins who also identify as Black. The following week, there are going to be open forums for parents in each division, lower, middle, and upper, with the division principals for additional questions about our opening as well as about these themes. And today, like I said, when we finish this presentation, we'll open things up to questions. But if there's questions we don't get to, particularly detailed questions about anti-racism initiatives or our work this summer, programming support for the coming year, please bring those questions as well as your experiences and your ideas to upcoming forums. And when we really look forward to hearing from you then. So without further ado, we're going to go into our third theme here. And we have, as you see, we have built from the individual to the community, and we take it further than that to the environment. And Nathan Bone, who co-clerked this process and serves as Dean of Enrollment Management, Nathan's also an alum of the class of '83, is going to describe to you this theme.
Thank you, Tori. This theme is titled Environment Illuminated. And the core premise, or the introduction to the body of work, is to provide students with an uplifting and beloved campus in which to live, learn, and grow. Westtown's stewardship of our facilities and natural spaces will prioritize an exceptional educational program while modeling environmental and financial sustainability. Wow, should have practiced that 50 times more. We will inspire learning in simple, accessible, high quality, innovative spaces, which together create a harmonious campus aesthetic through a balance of renewal, renovation, and new building. We will enhance the connections between our program and our open land, forests, lake, and creek. We will seek mission-aligned and environmentally sensitive ways of generating auxiliary revenue while minimizing the impact on our student community. And finally, we will pursue carbon neutrality in all our campus operations. Since Westtown found these 600 acres over 200 years ago, the environment locally on our campus and larger than that has always been important. It has become even more pressing in the last few decades that our students leave our school ready to engage actively in enhancing the sustainability of our environment, both on our campus, in our country and around the globe. We also, throughout this strategic vision, very much intend to always start with the student in mind. So as we work on buildings and the campus improvements, it will always be sort of centered around the student experience. And we are blessed with really, in just this small campus, just about every possible ecosystem that you can have in the Northeast, at least. From a lake to a creek, to a forest, to a farm, to open spaces, we have it all. And so we're blessed with that. And so we're actively looking to continue to build the ways our students interact with that space. And this coming year, when being outside is a really good way to also be safe from this virus, we'll get a real opportunity to be nudged along in that direction a little faster even than we might have in this coming year. So to give us time for you to ask questions, I'm going to stop now and turn it back over to Tori.
Nathan, thank you so much. So friends, those are our 3 guiding priorities for Westtown's future.